A life becomes unbearable when it is shared with someone who is consistently opposed to your progress, who feels a sense of resentment toward everyone they meet, and who discourages you at every turn. We tend to think that if you have enough raw talent, or if you're operating at an elite level, you're immune to this kind of environment. The assumption is that external negativity cannot touch someone who has mastered their craft. But that ignores the role of your psychological charioteer, the person in your immediate environment who steers your mindset and internal narrative. When that person's primary goal is to demoralize you and remind you of your failures, your actual abilities stop mattering. Constant negativity in close proximity functions as an invisible sabotage mechanism, neutralizing your potential long before the real battle even begins. To see exactly how this psychological sabotage works, we can look at the ancient epic of the Mahabharata, the ultimate case study. It features a warrior named Karna. Karna is incredibly gifted, an absolute elite, but to survive a high-stakes duel with his greatest rival, Arjuna, he needs a master charioteer to navigate the chaos of combat. He recruits King Shalya. Logistically, Shalya is the only man with the technical skill to handle the job, but he harbors a deep-seated resentment for Karna. This diagram illustrates the stark contrast between the two rivals. Arjuna is guided by Krishna, a supportive strategist. Karna, on the other hand, is tethered to Shalya, creating a volatile, hostile dynamic at the center of his operation. By choosing a partner purely for their mechanical abilities, while ignoring the psychological threat they posed, Karna set the stage for his own destruction. Shalya accepted the job only after setting a toxic condition. He demanded the absolute right to hurl unchecked verbal abuse at Karna during the upcoming battle. Karna was forced into strict constraints. He had to listen, show total respect, and remain completely silent. If he talked back even once, Shalya promised to drop the reins and walk away. Karna accepted the deal because he prioritized his immediate logistical need for a driver over his long-term mental resilience. He believed his skills were enough to withstand the words. Agreeing to this lopsided contract effectively invited a psychological Trojan horse into his inner circle. Karna had voluntarily stripped away his own boundaries. The moment they hit the battlefield, Shalya dropped his supportive disguise and initiated a relentless campaign of psychological warfare. He targeted Karna's competence first. Shalya predicted Karna's violent defeat at the hands of Arjuna, telling him that before he could even notch an arrow, his body would be turned into a pincushion. Then he attacked Karna's lineage. He mocked his unknown parentage, calling him a king on charity who had no business on this battlefield, intentionally triggering imposter syndrome. Finally, Shalya went after his character. He accused Karna of being a liar who deceived his own guru, even threatening him with physical violence to strip away his fundamental dignity. Shalya utilized this systematic approach to dismantle Karna's history, identity, and skill, turning the warrior's own psyche against him. This represents Karna's initial composure. His vow of silence made him defenseless against psychological strikes. Absorbing relentless abuse, the toxic energy has nowhere to go. The mind attacks itself, converting shock into an agonizing wound, tearing him apart from within. The true lethality of a severe critic isn't the initial sting of their words. It's the internal cognitive collapse that occurs when those words cannot be challenged or removed. This continuous psychological sabotage eventually triggers the final stage, the emergence of uncontrollable, consuming anger within the victim. Karna began to boil from the inside. That suppressed rage hijacked his focus, overriding decades of elite physical training and legendary combat instincts. Shalya didn't need to raise a single weapon to defeat one of the greatest fighters in history. He only needed to provoke him until he lost his mind. Chronic anger induced by a toxic inner circle hijacks the mind and assassinates the victim's hard-earned efficiency and competence. There is a difference between a mild critic who provides grounding feedback and a severe critic who actively engineers your psychological failure. The lesson translates directly to the modern day. You must actively audit who is metaphorically driving your chariot. Who are you allowing to sit in that passenger seat? If the guide in your inner circle is systematically destroying your peace and your confidence, they must be permanently removed. True potential is only realized when you protect your psychological environment from those who seek to destroy it.